You can only benefit from AI if you understand how to first look outside in. What problem do you solve for your customer? What's the value of solving it? You attach that to a core process. What capability allows me to deliver that value? Now, how could AI amplify that capability?
Welcome to the Leadership Podcast. I'm Chris Johnston, and I've got Matt Sims here from Simplicity. Our topic for today is one that you probably aren't hearing much about in the news or in your business. It's AI, and specifically related to small businesses. How in the world do we get our head around this, and how do we not get left behind? And I think there's a ton of literature. There's a ton of places you can go learn about it, but where do you start? Like, I think that's where most businesses are really struggling.
Yeah, I mean, let's be really clear. Most small businesses who attempt to implement AI are going to actually cost their business money.
Going to make things worse.
They're going to make things worse. There's just no, and this is because they don't have the resources to invest like the big players. They don't have Google and Tesla and Facebook and Apple money. So, and yet, here's the other paradox. You can't ignore it. You know, when people like Seth Godin and Bill Gates, they're talking about, you know, for as overblown as AI has been, they are making it very clear that we are underestimating the true impact that this is going to have, right? So we are currently living through one of those moments, the computer, the internet. We are living through one of those moments, and it is much bigger than those two.
Yeah, major shift.
Major shift. And so you as a small business now have absolutely no choice but to contend with this. And you can bet that if you're not setting the pace for AI in your organization, that you are creating concern and you're also creating chaos in the business, because you can bet your people are looking at it. How does this come in, right? So I think if people only take one line away from this podcast, it's this line. You can only benefit from AI if you understand how to first look outside in. What problem do you solve for your customer? What's the value of solving it? You attach that to a core process. What capability allows me to deliver that value? Now, how could AI amplify that capability? So to put it really, really succinctly, you need to know how you create value in order to benefit from what AI could do for you. It in a very long-winded way, it's fractional implementation.
It's a very different perspective than I think people are hearing in the market. We're hearing about how much it can do and how easy it will be, and it'll just do it. It'll just figure it out. It's so smart. But I love how you go into the process, right? Because so help us understand the next step. So we think about a process, we think about what we want to speed up or get better at, and then what?
And then find out how to do it? No, I mean,
well, when you talk about fractional AI, let me just expand on that. I think that's a word that I don't hear very often. Fractional implementation of AI.
Well, you think about small businesses need to be familiar with the term fractional CMO, a fractional CFO, even a fractional COO.
IT support.
Exactly. Most aren't actually familiar with the term. And I hope they do get familiar with the term, because if you can understand fractional, you can understand how to benefit in a variable way from the skills you need without having to hire it full time, right? And so take that same premise and talk about fractional integration of AI into your core processes. So again, I always talk about 5 core processes when it comes to driving value in a small business: marketing, sales, scheduling all the things you have sold, delivering to the single client, and your HR, right? And so when you think about those 5 core areas of your business, what I challenge business owners with is, what's your number one constraint? So, I mean, really, we're doing a first high-level version of strategy. Okay, number one constraint is X. Okay. Now, let's take marketing, for example. Okay, if marketing is your number one constraint, now what part of marketing? Is it awareness? Is it consideration? Is it conversion? Classic marketing funnel. Well, it's awareness. Okay, what am I doing to drive more awareness? Okay, I want to produce content, etc. Okay, great. Now I've got it down to something I'm doing that AI can augment. And for me, it has totally changed the way that I can produce content, completely changed the way I produce content. One of the things it does is I'll go for a run. And on that run, I'll take an old school recorder and I will record my thoughts. I'll come back home. I will plug in those thoughts. I will download them up to transcript.lol. I'll take them from transcript.lol. I'll put them into ChatGPT and say, can you lightly edit? And it'll give me a version of the transcript. I'll then probably use Claude as a way to say, hey, can you build me 3 versions of a LinkedIn post based on this virtually unintelligible transcript? It'll give me a first draft. That first draft allows me to take what I like of 2 or 3 first drafts, move it into a high quality blog piece out on either a blog or on LinkedIn, whatever it happens to be. So what I'm doing is I know we need to create a lot of content. By using AI, I'm able to reduce the time and increase the quality of the content that I'm able to produce. But notice I didn't say it produces content for me, because it doesn't yet, right? I mean, I think you got to remember this with AI. AI is the single smartest and stupidest thing you will interact with. It is a great co-pilot. It is a horrific pilot.
I think a lot of people are not sure what to think of, let's call it public AI tools that you mentioned, and using them for business and the sensitivity of some of the information or whatever. So it's reassuring to hear that you're using the public AI tools that are very cost effective or sometimes free to generate or enable your content creation and specifically in that part of that process, right?
Yeah. And there's a lot of people that would step into that and go, well, what about client privacy and all this? And look, if I'm creating content to be consumed for the public, I'm anonymizing who I'm creating that for, right? So let me restate that. I'm anonymizing any of the details in there. So I'm not really worried about what I'm putting into these machines. I look, and they're large language models. They're training on what I'm putting in. I don't actually believe they're really looking to single out me and understand my life and then do something nefarious to me or my clients. But regardless of where you sit on the privacy spectrum here, you can inject your degree of comfort into the process that I just talked about.
The other part I think that people are really struggling with is just spending that time to figure out where to apply it. You articulate that very clearly, but I think a lot of entrepreneurs and small businesses are looking at it as this a great thing or a scary thing, and not really thinking about the discrete place where you can apply it. So what are some other examples? Like you gave us a marketing example, I know you've been having these conversations. Where else can you, what other processes can it help with?
It can help with every process, but only if you can dissect it to the point where you know where you need the help or the amplification. And I don't look, before I walked very quickly from a business area marketing to a tier 3 or tier 2 process, rather, awareness, consideration, conversion, walked into awareness and said content creation is one process, a tier 3 process that we have under awareness, one of many. And then I walk through the content creation process and how I use AI, a couple different tools to speed up to decrease the time and increase the quality. So you can do that, but you got to do the hard work up front of getting to that tier 3 process of how you're going to do it. So I can give you another example. Look, we all spend too much time on email. I have a brilliant inbox AI tool called Fixer. Fixer.ai, Fixer.ai. And, I've shown it to you the other night. It literally tags my emails, and the ones that I have to respond to, it starts to create a draft. Now, are they fantastic right now? They're good. they dramatically reduce the time it takes me to respond to the emails. Do they get it all right? No. But I love it. They come in, they've made the heavy lift of the first draft very accessible, and then I've got to edit it and then I can send it out. But it has cut my time down on how long it takes me to respond to emails by over half the time. Because it is taking, it's basically tagging automatically the emails. Here's the ones to respond to. Here's the FYI ones. Some people are not comfortable with that. They're not comfortable with someone being in their inbox. For me, it's basically a virtual assistant, AI style, and they're just going to get better.
You just hit on something that I think is probably the most important thing we all have to remember around, use the word copilot. It's not going to do it for you. It's going to enable you to do more. And you've talked about I don't know if you coined this or if you heard it somewhere else, a 10-80-10 rule.
The 10-80-10 rule is about let AI do the 80% where it can. But you got to do the 10% up front to direct it. And this is where, I think probably the most important skill you can become adequate at, the most important skill you can become competent at is prompt engineering. So learn how to prompt AI. Learn how to get the most out of ChatGPT or Anthropic, which is really about specific prompts. So the better you can feed any of the LLMs you're using, the better response you're going to get. So you're responsible for that 10% up front. And that's a skill. It's a new skill, right? Like we're learning how to have a conversation with an LLM.
A conversation, not a query, not a search query, right? That's a new skill. Perhaps maybe not a skill we use elsewhere, but not one we use with a prompt.
Right. And we're not used to using it in this environment. So we have to figure out how to start to learn prompting, conversational. How do we interact with this body of knowledge? Okay. And then on the other side, you're going to get something that gives you a heavy lift, but how do you then take that and edit it and make sure that it reflects what you want? And, when I was talking about my content creation process, I use 2 LLMs as I go through. I use ChatGPT to clean it up, and I use Claude from Anthropic on creative writing, because bluntly, Claude is better today, and they're moving so fast that can change over time. Might be someone else tomorrow. So, I think the most important thing to get your head around is that if you can identify the core processes that deliver value to your customers, you can sort out how to save time and increase quality, probably at a much faster clip than you're going to just improve on your own. But if you don't get it to the discrete area, my guess is you can't benefit from AI right now.
I think that's the clarity that people need. They need to understand there's a discrete place to use public AI, but you got to put the work in up front to figure out where it can make you go faster, right? And then and it probably feels a little weird, like coming from an IT background, we often talked about this terminology around shadow IT. So it was basically the public tools that your employees would use and sometimes put your corporate information in, because the tools that you were providing internally weren't giving them enough functionality. Right. So as software evolved, corporate software evolved and functionality improved, that's been, I think, probably constrained a lot, contained a lot. But now we're in this world where we're actually going the other way a little bit. And it's important. The privacy is important. You've got to be thinking about what you're putting in there. But there are ways for small businesses to leverage that very cost effectively. The other one that I am just fascinated by, and it's a revolutionary common sense, is the note taker AI apps, and how they've transformed organizations. And we use them internally, but talk a little bit about the value that we've been able to see from the note taking and the summary and information that provides us.
Yeah, there's a bunch of them out there, right? Fireflies.ai, Otter.ai, Read.ai. There's a number of tools that join you in all of these virtual meetings that we're used to now, that on many levels have an opportunity to make you better as an organization. First, the transcript is caught, so you can go back to it when you're remembering or misremembering different things. Second, it gives you a very quick summary. Generally, it's getting better and better at the actions out of that summary. Some of the stuff I didn't realize was going to be such a benefit is the sort of percent talking, the tone. It's giving some high performers that I work with coaching they can take, and coaching that's really hard to argue with. So how do you show up in a meeting and you got this algorithm showing the words that you're using and what kind of connotation they have, the tone, how much air you're taking up? You start to see that and you go, oh. And there's no one that can look you straight in the face and go, look, you sound negative 56% of the time and you are actually talking 82% of every meeting. And no one has an accurate sense of how they're showing up unless they're able to reflect on it. This has sped up that reflection. Like it's remarkable.
We can receive it from a machine much easier than we can receive it from a pure human, right?
Way easier. And that's why I also love what Marshall Goldsmith has done. Number one coach in the world. Coach Hubert Jolly when he turned around Best Buy, was Alan Mullally's coach when he turned around Ford. You can't afford them. I can't afford them. But for free, you can go to marshallgoldsmith.ai and you can interact with everything he's put out there. He put all his speeches up there. He put all his books up there. And so you can start there and go, you can role play a difficult conversation you're about to have. You can go on to marshallgoldsmith.ai and role play that. I mean, like I don't go into a meeting anymore that has some degree of conflict internally or externally without visiting marshallgoldsmith.ai and playing out a few scenarios. And what's amazing about that is it broadens my horizons of what could potentially go down in that meeting. It sets me up for potential scenarios I didn't realize were going to be a problem. And it also allows me very easily to get prepared for those scenarios and show up in the way that I want to. Right? So these are tools. Now you're going, hey, that's more time. Yeah, it's more time, but it's more time to prepare to have a better meeting. And I think, if you want to translate that a little bit further, think about the sales process right now. Like I know we're jumping into all these processes you could amplify with it, but think about the sales process. Now you've got all of these ways that you used to have to figure out, how am I going to show up and be relevant to this individual? Well, look, you can do in 20 minutes of prep, what used to take 2 to 3 weeks of work for an EA to get you ready for a meeting or for you to do to get ready for an important meeting. You can do that in like 20, 30 minutes now. People are sharing most of their lives online, and you'd be stupid not to use the tools to find out what matters to these people so that when you get in that room with that important meeting, and look, let's call a spade here. You only have 6 or 7 really important meetings a week. I can't imagine not preparing properly for them. Who are they? What do they care about? What are they commenting online? What's the best way to show up so that they can see the value that you could potentially co-create together with your service? These tools are unbelievable. And the only way that you can get at them is by using them. But you can't use all of them. You'll get overwhelmed. So I've introduced them slowly to the different areas in my leadership style. And we as an organization have introduced them at core constraint areas in the business as we've gone to improve those areas.
Yeah, things that take a lot of time that can be accelerated. You have a great internal example that you've talked about before where collecting PCOs in one of our sessions, right? It used to take, well, I'll let you describe because you do a better job. Everybody's excited about offering up all their ideas.
Yeah, we have a process when we go to really get at root cause and dissect a process. You're going to go through the DMAIC framework, define, measure, analyze, improve, control. In the measure and analyze phase, there are lots of opportunities for improvement being offered, more than you could ever get at. Generally, there are somewhere between 150 and 500 opportunities. And a lot of them are duplicate opportunities, et cetera. But as you're brainstorming, best practice on brainstorming is just get them all out, right? I mean, look, there are bad ideas, but the best ideas come on the back of 5 to 6 bad ideas. So you got to let the train go. But then you got to find a way to group these ideas. And that grouping is painful. You've done the fun work, But now you got to sort of group them and sort them and bring them together and do the thing that we call affinitize, which isn't even a word, but it's, grouping these ideas together. And that used to be a day's work with the client. We've now basically eliminated that day. It's less pain for the client. We aren't charging less. So we now have an additional day that we can deploy and make some money off of it. And the client is happier, right? And I'm glad you brought up that example, because we're in a brief moment right now that you can find ways to profit from being a fast follower on the adoption of AI. If you don't, you're going to get run over, because it's going to be as ubiquitous as email and the computer is, and you're just going to get run over. So it's not like you have a choice to opt out here, but you do have a choice in the way you opt in.
Yeah. And there's repetition here. If you think about this, all this conversation, it's about finding that discrete place. And in this case, it's the droning work of affinitizing or grouping all those things, right? So you used AI to accelerate that, let the customer off the hook for that non-fun work, and opened up a day in every project that you can go do other things. So lots of good information. Hopefully the audience can take that. But if there's one thing you could advise us as we close out today, how do you get started?
I mean, the easiest place to get started is in your own personal life. Take some things that you want to achieve personally, right? Like for me, I'm running 7 marathons on 7 continents. I'm trying to break 3 hours. I'm fighting father time doing that. I don't know if I'll get there, but I have played around. I've created a marathon plan. I've created a nutrition plan, training plan. So quickly put it in. And look, I think where you want to drive it is, what do you want to achieve personally? And then how do you play with it in a consequence-free environment so you get comfortable with it? Because that's what I think you do personally. We did it as a family at home, all kinds of preferences on what we like, what we don't like. I just said I was marathon training. I need to eat a lot of calories. I need a lot of protein in there. My family doesn't need as much. How do we create a run rate on a 2-week meal plan? And meal plan, like that's like the tyranny of any family, like just trying to get fed. Well, we could sit there and put all our preferences in. We could sit there and say, how much protein do I need? What do we want for health standpoint? How do we get as complicated as you want? And it'll create you a meal plan. And then you can say, look, that's great. Can you give me the grocery list? They give you the grocery list. And what a great way to take something that is absolutely horrific to do. There are very few humans on earth who want to do this, and turn it into something that can be done very, very quickly. And look, you can take a CSV of that grocery list and you can upload it to Instacart and someone can have the groceries brought to you. Like there's ways to connect this in a way that can be fun, and also you can start to see the full power of it. So I would say anything that you want to do personally, anything that you want to get over the hump on, either that's a pain in the ass or it's a fun thing to do, play with it there. And then if you're talking about the business, look, what do you do really well today that you could potentially save some time on? One last thing that I want to leave on with this is anything that requires detailed analysis, anything that requires sober second look, RFP submissions, proposals that you're sending out, all those types of things, have AI assess it. Right? So these are really consequence-free ways to start to play with it. But I want you playing with it and getting comfortable with it. And then I also want you using it in pertinent areas of your business to start to save time or increase value.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us today. Hopefully these tips have helped you kind of get your head around how to use fractional AI in your business. If you're looking for more information on leadership, join us at leadership.com or look us up on LinkedIn. Thanks. If you enjoyed this episode and want to help us grow, please share it with your friends and colleagues. This would mean the world to us.